right, well, let's get started. Welcome again to everybody. I'm Steve Hanson. I'm an account manager here at LabKey and the director of user education. And today we're going to discuss really a new way we've developed to install the LabKey Server Community Edition, the SDMS, the Scientific Data Management System. Um, we, if you've uh, if you've ever installed the server in the past, it can be kind of intimidating. You needed to have a lot of expertise. You had to install a lot of components that maybe you weren't familiar with, and it maybe went over your head. Well, those days are really over with our new Docker-based installation, which is really quite easy and really requires very little expertise to at least install and get started with. So today I'm going to show you this particular installation. Again, it uses Docker, which is very easy and requires very little technical knowledge. And it will really result in a sort of a personal server that you can have on your laptop or your desktop. It's really ideal for testing and development purposes. Or as it also would be great as a kind of a companion server if your group already has a production environment. So the agenda today is, first I want to just introduce people to the LabKey SDMS, the community edition of the SDMS, give you a sense of what it can do, which is a lot, and then I'll actually demo the installation. It's so easy, you can really do it in about 2 minutes. And then I'm sure you'll have questions. We'll have a Q&A session. We have Stuart, the head of our SysOps team, who developed this installation technique, and so he'll be able to answer any of the technical questions that are going to go over my head. So first, what is the LabKey SDMS Community Edition? Well, first off, it's free. It's free to download and install. And, in this era of funding cuts and other funding challenges, obviously this makes it a very attractive options for all kinds of groups. It's also offered under the Apache 2 license, so you are free to modify it and even redistribute it with very few restrictions. It really is yours. Even the source code is yours to work with as you wish. Also, the Community Edition really includes all of the core server modules. All the core functionality is there. Functionality you might already be familiar with, like our clinical data tools, the sample tools, assay data tools. It will let you analyze and visualize your data, build presentations and dashboards and whatnot. Also, it has a very broad user base, from small academic labs to large for-profit pharmaceutical companies. Really, thousands of users have worked with the Community Edition. So why use the Community Edition? Well, as we said already, it's very cost effective. The software itself is free and very powerful, very rich. Also, it's highly customizable, really a hallmark of the SDMS from its beginning is its customizability. It's a great development platform, both for non-technical people and for advanced developers. Really, and everybody in between is able to really shape the server into something that's relevant to them and powerful. Also, the Community Edition really gives you, like all LabKey products, really gives you really complete control over your data infrastructure, both, what the shape of your data looks like, how it's deployed, who can see the data, and how they can interact with it. Really, you get complete control over it. It's also a proven piece of software in research and clinical settings, and really all those settings that I've already mentioned, like academic, for-profit, etc. It also has a 20-year history of continuous development. We've had our development team has been working on this from the start. It's really the core of our business, and what we do every day is we build out this platform. That's also, it's professionally maintained and updated. We're always adding new features and new value to this platform. It's also a great starting point for growth and development into premium editions of the server. Really, anything that you do in the community edition can be migrated and then continued to be developed if you move to another edition, like a premium edition of LabKey. So just to remind people, some of the key features, some of the richness that is part of the community edition, I've listed sort of some of the greatest hits here, although the list could go on. First, it has a whole suite of collaborative research tools. And I'm thinking here about sort of the wikis and dashboard building tools inside the server. Presentation tools that let you highlight the most important part of your data and communicate it to different audiences, whether they be the general public or experts on your own team. Also, we have a rich security system inside the SDMS, a role-based access control to your data, and also extensive auditing. Really, everything that happens on the server is audited, and you can go back and review it even at the community edition level. Also, we have very well-developed clinical study management tools that allow you to track participants and all of the data that you've collected on those participants over different visits. There's also sample management and assay data management tools inside the community edition. Again, very rich, plenty of features to help you shape your data in a way that is most valuable to you. Also, data integration is a real hallmark of the community edition. All those types of data I've just mentioned, clinical data, sample data, assay and laboratory data, they can all be linked together in a way that creates a connected whole and that can help you analyze and make better sense of your research data. Search and query are very powerful in the community edition, and this can be graphical tools like working with different tables and grid views, so just simple sorting and filtering of the data to create relevant views, all the way up to something more sophisticated like working with SQL and SQL queries to build different views of your data. And then we also have built-in reporting and visualization tools inside the community edition. Again, I could keep going, and honestly, a natural sequel to this slide would be to go look at some of my server administrator and user trainings, which are available over on our YouTube channel. If you just go to YouTube and search for LabKey, you'll see a whole bunch of videos. But look for the LabKey server or SDMS admin trainings as a sequel to this. So with that introduction to the server, to the SDMS, let's actually look at the installation and actually do it. By the end of this, I'm actually gonna have a running server that I can start to work with. Now this is a Docker Docker-based deployment, and I just want to give you a sense of sort of what that means, what that's about. First of all, this is going to be a local installation. I'm just going to install it on my laptop. So no one else is going to be able to see it. And to that degree, it's a very secure deployment. It's very suitable as a development server or a test server. And when I say development, I don't mean like you need to be a code developer. You can also just work with your data graphically inside the server. You don't need to have any kind of code experience to either succeed at this installation or to work with the server. So it has very simple technical requirements. Basically, I just need to download some kind of flavor of a Docker app, and that's about it, honestly. So again, you don't need to be an expert here. You don't need to know what Postgres is or how to work Linux or anything. So it's very easy, very robust way to get started with LabKey. And also, this could be a production-worthy, production-ready installation if you have the right expertise on hand. I'm not that guy, and I'm not gonna be able to show you that today. But just so you know, this is not this could be a production a foundation for a production deployment if you know what you're doing. Here's a graphical picture of what the Docker deployment sort of looks like. Docker really is a system that gives you a virtual environment to deploy complex software. So before Docker, you had to download, install all the different components and hook them all together. So you needed to have Java and you needed to have Postgres. And a few years ago, you even needed to have Tomcat. And then you'd sort of glue those all together and turn on, and then throw the server on top of it and turn it on. Well, with Docker, all that stuff is pre-built. It's built as these pre-built containers. All you really have to do is download them into the Docker virtual environment and turn them on. And all that stuff's already pre-built, glued together, and you don't need to worry about it. And then you interact with it through the browser just like you always have in the past. So just some things you can do once you have this Docker-based deployment are, learn and explore all the LabKey features without cluttering up a production environment. We do this all the time internally. We have a whole system of servers that are really just sort of sandboxes where we develop different ideas, different projects, and then migrate them. Once we're done and we're comfortable with them, we migrate them into a production environment. Another thing you can do is just shape your data and make it fit into the LabKey schemas. This is already a really powerful thing to do to sort of make sense of your data and to sort of get it started on sort of the development track inside a LabKey server. Obviously, you can create analyses and reports and visualizations. And again, you can develop those on your personal server and then move them later onto a production server. In general, if you've already got something on a production server, but you want to test it or extend it, this personal server is a great tool for that. And in general, once your data is in some flavor of LabKey server, it becomes easy to migrate to any other server. That's really not a problem. So sort of your work is done. The hard lifting can already be accomplished on this personal server I'm going to show you how to build. And then it's just trivial to move it onto a production server. Well, let's actually do this. So the requirements for this deployment, for this installation, are really just two. You need some kind of Docker tool, and I'm going to use Docker Desktop. I just downloaded it and installed it. And it just looks like a desktop app on Windows. By the way, you can do this on Windows, you can do this on Mac, do this on Linux. anywhere. I'm going to be doing it on Windows, my personal laptop. And so you need Docker, and then you need the LabKey Community Edition container. That's the pre-baked, the pre-built server and all of its configurations that we're just going to download and turn on. That's it. The actual installation is just download. We've got all this stuff on a GitHub repository. I'm going to download it from there. I'm going to run Docker Compose, which is how it sort of builds it, and then that's it. So let's do it. I'm gonna work from. We've got this all set up as or Stuart has, as a set of instructions, and this is the Community Edition container has been posted to a GitHub repository. This is that repository. By the way, that you can just go to this URL. We've put it in the Zoom chat here, the Zoom webinar chat. So if you go to that URL, you'll see what I'm seeing. You'll see sort of the files that you need, and then these very nice instructions, which I'm just going to follow to the letter, and at the end of it have a server. So first off, you need some kind of Docker, like I've done. You can install Docker Engine or Docker Desktop. So I've already done that. I'm not going to do that, but that's already done. But all this I'm going to do live. So I'm going to open a command line here and just really copy and paste into it. Again, you don't really need to be technical to do this. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to download the repository, and I'm going to do that with this Git client that I've already installed. You don't need to do it with a Git client. You can literally download it from one of these download buttons here. So this is not really something you need to have. You don't need to have Git to do this. But I'm going to do it because that's what the instructions say. Now the other thing I've done is I've created a kind of a blank directory inside of Windows here. I'm at the C drive inside a folder called dev and inside a folder called LabKey Community Edition. That's just a directory I made just as a workspace. It just needs to be empty. So I'm gonna just copy and paste in that git command. This is just a fancy way of downloading. What does it do? It clones or downloads all those files into this directory. So where am I at now? I'll show you inside of a Windows Explorer. This is what I just did. I downloaded all this stuff. This is really the core of it. This file, this YML or YAML file, is really the core of everything. And in fact, that's really all you need to download. So if you wanted to do a really simple version of this, just download that. But I'm following the instructions, and it gives me a number of files and then these mounts, which is sort of where the real server is gonna exist. So that's where that is at. Now let's do the next part of this installation. I'm going to change directories into what I just downloaded. And I believe, yeah. So now I'm inside of that directory I just downloaded. Just to confirm, let's look at it. Yeah, there's all that stuff, the mounts directory, the YAML file, etc. Now I'm just going to tell Docker to do its magic. Right here, we're going to do it's called Docker Compose Up, and that's just telling Docker to glue it all together and turn it on. And there it did it. You can see it. It created some sort of Docker process and turned on. There's actually two containers. There's a Postgres container, that's the database. And then the Community Edition server container, that's all of the software that's free. And so let's take a look at the Docker desktop itself to see what's happening. This is Docker desktop, and you can see that I have that Postgres container and that LabKey server container. And that's what I was trying to depict in this picture here. So that's where we're at. We've got this set up and we're ready to go. If we go to our instructions, our next instruction is just to open a browser and go to the server. It should be up and running, I think, at this point. So let's do that. Here's my browser. Now, this looks a little scary, and it says it's not secure. The reason that Chrome is showing you this is we have provided a certificate inside the server, but it's a self-signed certificate. And Chrome is just telling us, you realize that's a self-signed certificate. Do you trust it? Well, you can trust it. This is actually safe. It's also just on my laptop. But getting past these kinds of screens is exactly the kind of expertise you need to move this to a production environment. Again, that's for another day. But I'm gonna tell Chrome, yes, I know what I'm doing. I know this is a self-signed certificate. I want to go on. And sure enough, here I am at the server. The server's now asking me to register as the first user. And as the first user, the initial user, I will become the site admin on the server, which is the most powerful role inside the server. So I just need to give it an email. It doesn't need to be a real email, by the way. It could just be a fake email. Well, it has to be an email, I think. And then you need to give it some kind of password. Okay, good. I have to repeat it. Oh, I didn't type my password the same right way. Try that again. Great, and I'm in. Now there's a couple of kind of configuration screens. I would just recommend taking all the defaults on these screens and just clicking through them. And I'm at my server's homepage, my completely new and fresh LabKey Server Community Edition, SDMS. So that's really it. I hope that really gives you a sense of how powerful this installation is and how much you can get out of this. I can now start working with data. I can start building out my projects. And again, I think a great sequel for this video right now is to look at my YouTube videos about becoming an admin, a power admin inside the server, and sort of learning all the different buttons and levers that are in this software, which are vast. So some general resources for people that are just starting out with Community Edition. First off, take a look at our documentation. Also, that documentation's been under development for 20 years. And it's rich. It has all kinds of resources to help you out. Also, the GitHub repository I just showed you, that document, I just kind of took you through the bare of that document, the core of that document, but there's more to those instructions. Also, Docker Hub is where we store the images and these containers. Also, take a look at the tutorials and example projects that are part of the documentation. Those are really a great way to get started. Also, the developer APIs, the client APIs offer documentation if you're going to be doing API development against the server. And again, the YouTube videos, which I already mentioned. we want to do a follow-up webinar or a series of webinars around the Community Edition. So please give us your feedback. We want to know, was this useful to you? Was there something more you wanted to hear? And also, we'd love to hear your ideas for a follow-up webinar or for webinars. Like things that come to mind are how to, what would it take to make this into a production server? Or how do you work with data and reports inside the server, or how do you become a power administrator inside the SDMS? Please, we'd love your feedback. You can either enter it into the webinar chat feature here, or also there will be a post-webinar email where we'll give you links that you may have missed here, and we'll give you a way to give feedback as part of that email. Well, we'd love to hear your questions if you have any. So please just enter them in the chat here, and I will read them as we go here. We also have Stuart here, who developed this Docker container. Well, one question is, how do you update this? And I'll let Stuart chime in here.
Sure. So LabKey does post regular updates to its Community Edition. And in the GitHub repo, there's the Docker YAML file. If you were to open up that YAML file, it does have a LabKey version listed in it. So to upgrade, you simply just update that YAML file with the latest version and restart your local Docker server, and it'll automatically upgrade to the latest LabKey version.
Great. Great. And here's another question. We have Renato asks, thanks for the presentation. Do you have an official community forum where we can chat or send issues or bugs to the core team? Honestly, we don't have that right now. We do have a history though of that community forum, which you're welcome to search right now. But right now, that has been really deactivated for kind of continued use in the future. But there is again a rich history of documentation and of forum questions. I have a question. Thanks for that. And another one asks, where is the support documentation for the Community Edition? The way to get to that is to go to labkey.org, and you'll see a big button that says documentation right there. Labkey.org is really the hub for all things Community Edition. Including the tutorials and the documentation and all that. And I had a question for Stuart. This is a pretty broad question, but do you have any best practices that you want to make sure people follow when working with the Community Edition?
Sure. One of the things you may want to consider is looking at that Docker Compose YAML file that is in the repository. In order to make this easy for people to start up and use, it has some default things in there. One of them is a default password for your database. I would advise you that maybe you want to edit that file and just put in a good strong password there. That's not the default one. That would be one practice along those lines. Another one is just keep an eye out for, if you're going to use this on a regular basis, as I mentioned earlier, look for the newer versions of LabKey as they're published. We produce 3 major releases a year, and then we do maintenance releases along that during in between those periods too. So it's always advisable to um, update on a regular basis. As you know, security is an important thing that's becoming more and more of a challenge. And but one of the things that LabKey does is maintain our community edition just as we are maintaining our our premium editions with regular updates. So those would be the two things that I would recommend.
Great. Great. Well, thank you so much. We'll give people a few seconds to enter any other questions they might have. And well, if there's no more questions, I'll sign off. And I hope everybody has a great rest of their day and watch for that follow-up email that will include links and options for feedback. We'd love to hear what else you think and what else you want to hear about this topic. All right. Have a great day, everybody, and thanks for attending.